Hi, my Polygon primitives. It's your 3D girl AB, and this is part 2 in the How to Think Like a 3D Modeler series. In this video, I'm going to discuss how to be more efficient when it comes to 3D modeling. So when you learn 3D modeling for the first time, of course, the first thing you want to focus on is building your skill set. First, you want to make sure that you actually know how to navigate your 3D modeling software and how to actually model in it. But if you actually want to model for an animation pipeline, you have to model as quickly as possible and as efficient as possible. This is because when you're a part of an animation studio, you will have deadlines that you have to meet. So I'm going to show 3 different things that you can do to help you model more efficiently. So the first thing I'm going to discuss is saving versions. So as you probably already know, sometimes when modeling, your software can crash or a file can become corrupt, or something can go wrong with your model. That is why one of the things that 3D modelers do is they save versions. What do I mean by that? So let's say I'm modeling a character. Now this character is very simple. There's no detail, but this is just for example. And let's say on Monday, all I did was model the head. I can save this as character version 1. Then on Tuesday, once I get this far, I can save it as character version 2. Next day I work on the arms, character version 3. Then on Thursday, I have the hands. I can name this character version 4. Last day, I have the whole body. I can name this character version 5. Why would I do this? So let's say on Thursday, I'm working on the file and it becomes corrupt. There's nothing I can do to save it, or it crashed and it's fully gone. Instead of starting from scratch, I can then go back to version 3 that I saved and start from there. So by having each version saved, if something happens to one specific version, I can go back to the version that I was working on before it, and this saves me time. Another thing that I can do is make certain modifications to some of the polygon primitives and saving those so that I can use them next time. So for example, here I have 2 cylinders. So as I explained in the last video, one of the things you want to stay away from is n-gons. So whenever you bring a cylinder in Blender, you will notice that there are 2 n-gons that come with it. So this face right here is an n-gon, and this face right here is an n-gon. Now usually, if you've seen my other videos, whenever I use a cylinder, one of the first things I do is I get rid of the n-gon and I turn it into quads, which is what I did with this polygon primitive. So here I have quads. Now after doing that, I can save this polygon primitive as an FBX by going to File, Export, go to FBX, and then if I want to start a new model in a new file and I want to use a cylinder, I can bring this in and already I have the quads without having to make the quads again with starting a whole new cylinder. Now the third thing, and this is probably one of the most important things to keep in mind to model more efficiently, is knowing hotkeys. So hotkeys are basically shortcuts where you know certain keys to press to get a faster result. So for example, if I want to add a polygon primitive, the long way would be going up here to add and then choosing one of these right here. Or I can go here, click on it, and add one of these polygon primitives. A quicker way, however, would be to just press Shift A and then choosing one of the polygon primitives here. Now I'm going to go over different hotkeys that you should know as a 3D modeler. So the first hotkeys I'm going to show you is for how to look at different views. So if I want to go to the front view, on my numpad I would press 1, and here you can see it says front orthographic referring to the view. If I want to see my top view, I can press 7, and there you see that the top view. And then if I press 3, I can see my right view. Now I'm going to go back to my front view pressing 1. Now let's say I want to see the back view, or I want to see the left side or the bottom. Whenever you want to see the opposite view, you just have to press 9 on your numpad. So for example, I'm looking at the front view, I press 9, I'm at the back view. I press 7 to my top view, I want to see the bottom view, I press 9. If I want to see the right view, right now I'm at the right view. If I want to see the left view, I press 9. So to show those views better, I'm going to bring in 2 polygon primitives. Right now I'm in object mode, And whenever I want to switch modes, I will use this hotkey, Tab. So when I press Tab, I go to Edit Mode. So right now, and if I want to go back to Object Mode, I press Tab again. So in Object Mode, I'm going to bring in 2 polygon primitives. I'm going to press Shift A. I'm going to bring the cube. And then to move it, I'm going to move it to the side. I'm going to press Shift A again, and I'm going to bring in a sphere. I'm going to press 1, and I'm in my front view. I'm going to move the sphere to this side. I'm going to move the cube to this side, and right now I'm in my front view. So now, if I want to see back view, I press 9. Now I'm going to press 7. I'm at my top view. If I want to see the bottom view, I'm going to press 9. Now I'm going to press 3. I'm at the right view, and if I want to see the left view, I'm going to press 9. And that's how I change views using hotkeys. And of course, if I want to come out of an orthographic view, I just middle mouse, and I'm out of an orthographic view. I'm going to delete these 2 polygon primitives, and now I'm going to bring in another polygon primitive, Shift A. I'm going to bring in a cube again to show more hotkeys. So now I'm going to show some hotkeys when it comes to modifying a polygon primitive. So I'm going to press 1 and go to my front view. So right now I'm in object mode. Again, to switch from object mode to edit mode, I just use the hotkey tab. After that, I choose what mode I want to be in. So right now, if you look up here, I'm in face mode. Now to switch modes, I can just use the numbers 1, 2, 3, but not the ones on the numpad. So if I press 1 right here, I am now in vertex mode. If I press 2, I am now in edge mode. And if I press 3, I am now in face mode. So now if I select the face, for example, this one, and I go back to my front view, I can also use hotkeys to move that face. So for example, let's say I want to just move it towards my left. I can press G. When I press G, I can move it, and you can see I'm moving the face. But let's say I want to move the face in a specific direction. I'm going to click, press Ctrl Z to undo that. And this time I'm going to press G, but I'm going to press X. The reason why I'm going to do that is that if you look up here, you have Z here, Y, and X. That is for each axis. So for example, the red line here is the X axis. The blue line here is the Z axis. And then if I move out of my orthographic view, this green line is the Y axis. I'm going to press 1 again, and I want to move it along the X axis. So I'm going to press G, but I'm not going to move it just yet. I'm going to press X, and then I'm able to move it along the X axis. I'm going to undo that. Same thing for the Z and the Y axis. So I can press G, then I press Z, and it will move along the Z axis. I'm going to undo that, and then I'm going to come out of my orthographic view. I can press G and then press Y, and it moves along the Y axis. Now I'm going to show you different hotkeys for modifying this cube. So if you look on your left side, you see your different tools. If you hover over a tool, you will notice that it will show you a hotkey. So for example, this is bevel, and if I hold over it, you will see towards the bottom of the sentence, it says Control B. Control B means that I can bevel it by just pressing Control B. Or if I go over shrink flatten, it shows me Alt S. By pressing Alt S, I can shrink flatten. So let me show you some hotkeys. So I can press 2 to go to my edge mode. Hold on to that edge. Press Control B. Pull away from it, and it bevels. And then if I want to add edges to the bevel, I can move my middle mouse. And I'm adding edges. If I want less edges, I just move the middle mouse in the opposite direction. So by using the middle mouse, I can control how many edges I add to the bevel. Another hotkey that I can use to add edges is by pressing Control R. So I can press Control R, and then when I hover, as you can see, it shows a yellow line in the center of whatever edge I hover. I can press Enter, and then when I press Enter, I can slide to either direction and choose where else I want the edge to be, and click and the edge will stay there. Or I can undo that. I can press Control R. Again, it will show at the center. Click and click again, and it will stay right there at the center. I'm going to undo that. Also, I can press Control R, and with my middle mouse, increase how many edge loops I add to the polygon primitive. Now I'm going to go to my face mode, and I'm going to show you the hotkeys for scale. If I press S and pull out, I can scale this face. I'm going to undo that. I can also scale along an axis. So for example, if I want to scale along the Y axis, I press S, then I press Y, and then when I pull out, it scales along the Y axis. Same thing for X. I press S and I press X, and it scales along the X axis. Now this face is only going along the X axis or the Y axis. So if I press S and then press Z, it won't go anywhere because it's not along that axis. Versus if I choose this face, which is going along the Z axis, if I press S then Z, it would actually move along the Z axis. Another hotkey I'm going to show is how to choose faces or edges along a loop. So for example, if I want to choose all the faces along here, I can hold on to Alt and click near this edge, and all the faces along there are selected. Now when using this, you have to know which edge to go near. So for example, if I want to select the faces going this way, I would have to go near this edge, hold on to Alt, and I select all of those. I'm going to go to my object mode, delete the cube, press Shift A. I'm going to bring in a cylinder. Going to increase the faces. Go back to my edit mode. And to show how I can select all the faces here, I'm going to press Alt, select this edge near here, and all those faces there are selected. Same thing for edges as well. If I press 2 and I want all these edges selected, I just hold on to Alt, and all those edges there are selected. Now let's say I want to select all faces. I'm going to press 3 to go to my face mode, and if I want all these faces selected, I can press A, and all faces are selected. The reason why shortcut A is important is that when you're in a mode outside of wireframe, only the faces that are visible can be selected. What do I mean by that? If I go over all the faces here, all these faces would be selected, but if I go around it, these faces are not selected. Versus if I go to wireframe mode, then I can select all the faces. But of course, there's a shorter way to do it, and that is by just pressing A. So again, if I click away and just press A, all those faces are selected. Now I'm going to go to my object mode, and I'm going to delete this cylinder. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a simple model only using shortcuts. Now the only time I will not use a shortcut is if I'm switching modes or if I'm using proportional editing. There are certain things to keep in mind when it comes to learning hotkeys. First, hotkeys are different for different 3D modeling softwares. In this video, Blender is being used and is used at some animation studios, but most use Maya because it is seen as industry standard. As a beginner, you can learn 3D modeling in Blender since it is free, but if you gain a job at a studio that uses Maya or another software, you will have to transfer your skills. This will be tricky, not only because the hotkeys are different, but also because you develop muscle memory for one program and will have to develop the muscle memory for another. So I've now made my model using shortcuts, and so I'm going to hide the image. And since I've now made my model, I can now add a modifier. And the modifier I'm going to add a subdivision surface. I'm going to bring up my levels viewport. Also my render. So those are 3 ways that you can become a more efficient 3D modeler.